All right, man. We are live.
Real life?
I'm here
Great.
live with Max Berchtold. I am Computer Brain, and this is a weekly market update for Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. Bitcoin is nuking. The stock market in the US is nuking. Markets everywhere are nuking. And we're here to give a little bit of an analysis. Do you want to share your screen, Max, or do you want me to share my screen?
Oh, I can start.
Yeah, start
I
it.
can start with a quick outlook. Let me see.
Max has his red lights on in his background because the red lights reflect his mood in the markets.
It's red. It's a red day.
Very red.
Um, so let's start. I think I start on the regular Bitcoin chart and let's start on the weekly because I see some interesting stuff. And actually, I will start on the CME Futures chart because I have some interesting levels marked out on this chart. Obviously, today is a very red day, but I will focus for now on the weekly structure and not on the particular day when navigating on the weekly time frame and view. And on this chart, there is some very interesting things. I have some marked some things out. At first, what indicators do I use? Standard EMA, you see the weekly 50 EMA here, which tends to be pretty supportive on higher time frames. I have marked out the CME gaps previously on the weekly time frames, here, here, and here. And on the bottom, I have activated my breadth indicator and a weekly cycle indicator. And what I want to point out and what I saw previously and why I'm bearish for a while is that our weekly breadth turned bearish. And that happens not too often. We had it here and we had it here. And I marked these spots out previously with that boxes here. So in the beginning of the bull market, we had a large push up, two-wave push up, or actually three-wave push up. And then the weekly breadth turned bearish. It attempted to break bearish here. And the stochastics indicated it way earlier. And then we had a bigger correction or a bigger phase of going sideways. And within that market phase here, we had corrections. So we had one correction, two corrections, and then the major correction where the breadth turned bearish. On the first correction, we already filled the CME gap, the big CME gap here we had when we broke out of the bear market. And then after that phase, we got the second leg higher. Also, breadth turned bullish, stochastics turned bullish. And at the end, when we turned into the big 1 year range here for 2024, the breadth indicated it turned bearish and it was stuck quite a while bearishly until then bottoming out and turning bullish at the end here, and eventually the whole range resolved up. So what we have here, the weekly breadth turned bearish. It was toppy before. The stochastics indicated a breakdown and the breadth to soon turn bearish. So my macro outlook was that the major leg here, or let's say the weekly bullish phase, may come to an end. And now we eventually resolved down from our range here. So I think this was kind of a distributive range. We sweep the previous range highs before going to the range lows and now eventually break down. And the only real major levels I have marked out on this chart for me are the most important levels. Obviously, I'm watching, which is for one, the CME gap here. So we have a CME gap here. We had one here that got filled completely. And we had one here that also got filled completely. There is no big CME gap on the weekly chart that did not get filled. That is just something to keep in mind but I not eventually like it is a zone of interest for me, but not an ultimate target. Like we don't have to fill it. We can fill it way later when going into a bear market or something like that. But it's an interesting level. I marked the top range highs and lows for my interpretation and from the big 2024 range where we hopefully do not deviate back into, which would be pretty bad. So that is my weekly view at the moment. Nothing very bullish here. Still very important levels below. And the graph is negative, which is just to be noticed. And then I would switch to the daily chart if you don't have something to say on the weekly view.
I think one other good thing to point out here too, and I think you'll see this on the timeline soon, is that it was clearly a double top on Bitcoin, like textbook definition of a double top, which is makes an attempt at a first go. The volume is higher on the selling than it is on the buying. It recharges for a couple of weeks after falling like around 20% at least, which it did. And then it makes another go. It usually does actually go a little bit higher, which is what it did. It sweeps all the shorts that were built up behind the previous all-time high, and then it just rolls over on high volume. And the final part of a double top, when it's confirmed, is when it breaks that neckline, and the neckline is the consolidation area in the middle here. So when it breaks that area to the downside, which it did last night and today, it's a confirmed double top, like by the textbook definition. So I think really what everything Max said, and everything that I think are the same. I think the CME gap is an interesting area. If you go to the daily, Max, now.
Yeah, I would switch to the normal daily and to the 60-day cycle chart next.
Yeah. And I think here what I'm looking for, I don't think it's going to get this close to the daily 200 moving averages, which is the blue line area that Max has on his chart here. This blue area is his daily 200s EMA and SMA. I think we are going to absolutely test that area. So I'm somewhat waiting for that before I can say, like, at least in the low time frame near term, that we've reached some type of like local bottom. And then that's the CME gap. So this is like if things get really bad, but I kind of don't think we're going to do it today, or at least in this one go. I would be shocked if we went from like, I mean, look at this daily chart. Like we are at above 95 and then just going straight down to 77. I don't think that's going to happen immediately. I think it's going to go down, back up again a little, go down, go back up again a little. I wouldn't be surprised if we settle, or the low settles somewhere in the 70s at all. Something that Max and I have been talking about for a while is that, at least the CME gap will get filled. And who knows, maybe it will test the old all-time highs, which was like 72, 73,000 of the chop solidation range, the 8-month summer range of 2024, before it broke out to then go up to 106 to 110. So that's like, I think from an actionability standpoint, I am hesitant to go giga long until we see, I think, a testing of the 200 dailies and or a test of the CME gap, which would be like a sweep of the dailies and then kind of a rebound.
That would be the next thing. So what are strategies going forward from here with a very bearish weekly outlook and the daily breaking down already? And for that, I would switch to the 60-day cycle chart to just give an idea of how, in which phase we could be on the daily time frame. And then we can go back and look at the structure and on liquidity levels, I think, on the daily chart, or you can share the daily chart later on. But I just want to give it a look here on the daily because I think it's really interesting what happens here with the 60-day cycle. They tended all of 2024 here to be pretty like insanely good in portraying the current market situation, especially in ranging environments where we got from lows to the top of the range and then made a new low again. And what is pretty interesting is this 60-day cycle here where we got a low, a high, a mid-cycle low, a secondary high, and the ultimate cycle low was pretty clean. And you saw the structure of that low was clearly part of the whole downside consolidation here. And then we shifted market structure right here within the next 60-day cycle, where we saw that the 60-day cycle lows were constant higher lows. So that was something to be noted. And after that, we had a very bullish 60-day cycle. So, and then from there on, things got a bit messy. We got choppy above here. And when we talked about the 6-day cycle, I expected at least the liquidity down here to get taken in this low. And we didn't take it. We made a very possible early cycle low here on day 58 and then spiked up and completely sold off in a spike down on a day 68 bottom. So I'm not sure which one is now the exact bottom of this 60-day cycle, because from a price standpoint, I have to say that this wick is the 60-day cycle low. But from a structural standpoint and timing standpoint, I have to say that the day 58 bottom fits better. And now we finally take the liquidity we never took before. So this area here was never touched, but today we touched it successfully. And the daily 200s come into play here as support. So what this tells me on a liquidity standpoint is that all these build-up lows here are now finally swept to the downside. But we have very empty space below us, and the only thing holding us up at the moment are the daily 200s. And Bitcoin tends often to dip into them. So make something like that. For example, they are often not peak support. You touch it and you immediately go. So this is something to take note of.
Max, real quick, can you just explain? Sorry. So you have changed your 60-day cycles, the last two instances of the lows. You have two potential lows in each of them. And what you're saying is that because it made a lower low in the prior 60-day cycle, so over here, you've added another contingency plan. But isn't it the case that a 60-day cycle can be plus or minus 10 days, right? It can be like 51 days and it could be it could be 50 days or it could be 70 days and still be a 60-day cycle?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm just not sure going forward timing wise how long this cycle will be playing out. Because if this was already a very long cycle, taking it from this day 58 bottom to that 68 bottom here, if we take that wick, then okay, that would indicate the next 60-day cycle would be around March 14th. Or if we take that low, it would be around that. And as I don't know, because this was pretty messy and the breath already bottomed earlier, but we made a lower low, I'm not sure here. And I can tell you that many other 60-day cycles, like the one here, the lows were more clear to me and I could like identify them pretty easily. This was definitely a low. We got a perfect reaction from the low, never got back down again. This low was clean, this low was clean. The highs also were clean. 3 dives up, took in a high, put in a low. So as I'm not sure here, timing-wise, I marked the two possible scenarios, and we are definitely in the area where we could bottom out. So it's an area of interest, because from this area of weakness, taking it from the 6-day cycle and the two potential lows here, to this area of weakness that are 60 days, it is pretty big, but which only tells me I'm searching in this area within the next, let's say, 10 days or let's say 2 weeks. I'm searching for a low here. I'm looking to buy actually. I'm looking to scale in on cascades. I'm scaling in onto big liquidation candles. For example, if we in this time frame get some sparks of liquidations down and fill the CME gap here, this would be reason enough for me to buy into the market spot based on a pretty sold off breath and potential bottoming breath, a key level and the timing aspect of the market. So yeah, it is, when we look at this, the daily chart, it was quite clean. We got a somewhat where here a low. We had a pretty early cycle top, which is usually bearish when you get an early cycle top because you have more time to roll over and be bearish. We get somewhat of a mid-cycle low here, and that's interesting because out of a mid-cycle low also you should have 10 to 15 days up of strength, and we were pretty weak. We didn't do much. The only thing we did was actually taking liquidity. So we had built up highs here. We took them here with that high and immediately hammered down, which is not a bullish sign. And I turned very, very bearish here. Going into a 60-day cycle low, you don't want to see this. And I already was bearish because I'm never bullish into these timing wise lows. So also here on that top where we rejected and broke down eventually, I got turbo bearish here because we were breaking down in front of a timing zone where I expect a major 2-month low to put in. So that's my daily portray. I'm definitely looking for a low here in the next days, but where it would be, I really don't know how bad it gets, or even if it was it already, which would be totally fine on my side, because there should then be a pretty strong reaction from the market, and you probably do not get a complete V reversal. So we should see a bit of structure out of this, and there would be time to position for that. But for now, I'm doing nothing. I'm just waiting and watching, seeing the structure develop in this time frame, and take it from there. Also, yeah, that's basically my analysis on Bitcoin timing wise. Yeah, taking into account the weekly turned bearish, so we could have put in a major high here. That tells me the weekly, and the daily cycle is just in the zone of a major low. So I don't want to catch knives here, but also on very important levels, I'm willing to scale in spot, not very leveraged up, but just add exposure for eventual resolution up. And also in bear markets, these 60-day cycle lows tend to be lows, and we should at least get a relief bounce out of them.
So at what point are you thinking of starting, like what are you looking for in a bottom, I guess? At what point are you like, all right, this is looking kind of bottomed. It's worth a stab, it's scaling in. Whether you're
Yeah.
gonna DCA like, on a time basis or just buy specific levels when they're hit. What are you looking for in the bottom?
Oh, definitely levels. So for me, levels are in the midst of the, for example, we dip into the daily 200s and we swept the whole liquidity here of the build-up lows, and which is a typical liquidity sweep setup for me. So you have build-up lows, you have an FVG fair value gap below you, or even a CME gap. You dip into this, and then you reclaim these build-up lows and go from there. So if we see something like that, I dip into this zone and reclaim here, build structure, the breath simultaneously starts to turn up again. This would be reason enough to scale into the market, but that would be a soft bottom. I name that soft bottom because there is no big liquidation cascade really. Also today, things look bad, but they don't look like a cascade yet. Like we had a cascade on Ethereum and other altcoins previously, so this could be already behind us. So this would be a structural thing I would look at. And the next thing are levels. I definitely would buy some spot at the CME gap if we get there. And the next thing would be the range highs of the 2024 range. Once we break below the range highs of this range, I would cut. I don't want to deviate back into a previous range where we were fighting a year long to break out of this. And if the market decides, if buyers and sellers are even on the solution that we will deviate back into that range, I'm not interested in longs from there. I want to see a reaction at least from the range highs or the CME gap here, and that would be the only levels I would scale in. And all the buying action I do further is actually after the 60-day cycle low. So I would allocate my base position spot on key levels like here or the CME gap or the old range highs. Then I have 3 points of interest where I scale into a spot position, and I am already allocated once we, for example, get a big reaction out of this. And then the rest of my buying would be see which, for example, altcoin is a specific outperformer out of this low and scale into that based on trend reclaims, for example. And these 60-day cycle lows, especially 60-day cycle lows, tend to be pretty good in also indicating market dynamic shifts, which means that you tend to see different altcoins outperform out of each 60-day cycle low. I don't know why, but those big washouts to the downside seem to reset something in the market, and the roulette table is again game on, which is the next outperformer for the next 60 days. So I would definitely look at altcoins going further out of this.
Definitely.
I didn't even look at ETH BTC chart today. Maybe we should later.
Yeah, look at it. Or I can share my screen. We can look at some of the. Or do you want to maybe cover some other setups that you've been looking at if you've been looking at any alt setups? But I think this has been great on like kind of the macro picture because obviously Bitcoin is going to drive a lot of the other altcoins in the market. So understanding where Bitcoin is going is super important.
Yeah. So first, I'm always looking at Bitcoin. If I know where Bitcoin is on the 6-day cycle, I can decide what I do when it comes to altcoins. And the only major altcoin I'm actually monitoring as a general, because I'm just interested in how this developed, is Solana. And it looks so turbo bearish. Like since we reclaimed the daily 200s down here and had a crazy rally, consolidated for over a year, and we had that double top that also you mentioned, that textbook double top scenario here where we just took out liquidity to the upside, had a failed rally, and now broke out to the downside, losing all trend supports. And the only major area of interest here for me is actually this green area here, because it tended to be the best risk reward area of the whole range here throughout 2024. If you bought spikes into this area, you would get rewarded.
Mm-hmm.
But I would cut every Solana exposure when we fall below red here, because I don't see us hold. I don't see support below there, really. So that would also be more than just a spike lower. It would be losing the big high time frame range, losing all trends. Below red, I really have nothing to do here on Solana, and I really only monitor Ethereum, Solana, some majors here, and want to scale into them based on the cycle for the beginning, and then look for outperformers.
Absolutely.
So not much. Maybe I can share a quick MicroStrategy chart, because
Sure.
I made a post today on X about a further game plan before you take the screen. Because I think it's just a really great showcase of a high time frame trend trading plan. Because MicroStrategy is really the picture perfect example of a very clean high time frame daily trend to trade, and I actually played it spot and played it pretty well. You saw at the beginning of the bull market, we reclaimed the daily 200s here, and every retest of the daily 200s so far was a long. But now, after this immense rally, and that's just a point of caution I want to say, we were going from the lows to the high over 3,900% up on MicroStrategy. So why is this a point of caution for me? I am happy to long early into a trend. Here is the part where I take the most risk portfolio wise. And then I try to scale out or add after a big period of consolidation. Obviously, I would cut if we lose the trend here. But now, here on this top side, I'm not sure if I want to take as much risk as I took down here, because the situation is different. We were already up 3,900%. And the structure just seems to be very distributive. And going forward on stocks, crypto stocks, I would more likely plan for bigger swing short setups, like for example, a breakdown short of this trend that was so clean previously would be a very good indication to short. And there after that, a retest of that trend to short. And I actually exited every MicroStrategy position I had pretty much here, where we lost the very local trend here on the daily chart. So I got out on this candle here, maybe a bit below here. I'm pretty happy to gone out. And now I have the option to either scale in here, exactly where the best risk reward actually is on this chart, or just wait and see how things develop. And that's it for me today.
Super smart, Max. I love it. Yeah, there's no reason to like force yourself to trade or jump into a trade. There's going to be plenty of great opportunities, I think, if you're patient. Yeah, I'll share my screen, Max, and I can talk about some
Sure.
things that I was looking at. So on Bitcoin, again, similar to what Max was saying, I don't think Bitcoin is gonna to V reverse from here. I think it's going to have to sweep at least this low here, and then we'll see what happens with price action. Ideally, it sweeps. We get a big volume candle here. Volume at a turn at a key level will frequently mean like a trending reversal. It's longs getting stopped out. It's shorts closing. So ideally, I'm watching right here for like a near-term swing long. Like maybe you can swing along up to this level. I wouldn't be super confident in going back into this range just yet. I think I just think it's going to take longer to fix that. Um, Obviously, Max, we talked about the double top, and then obviously this symmetrical triangle here, consolidation,
Mm-hmm.
not knowing where it was going to go, and then as soon as it peaked its head out, it just absolutely nuked. So we'll see on that. There was a couple of charts that were actually really interesting. One of them on the high time frame was RUNE. Uh,
Oh,
Zooming
you
out
shared
on,
that with me, yeah.
yeah, I think this is one where it sold off way before everything else, and it got
I think because of news, or did they go bankrupt?
I truly have I really don't know. Um, but again, like this is just like a classic. Like this was the demand zone. It's tapped the demand zone, and it's making this beautiful. This is called a an ascending triangle at the bottom. So this is on the weekly time frame. So we're pretty zoomed out here.
So the
But what you
volume is very clean on that.
Yeah, exactly right. You have like clear volume capitulation. You have equal highs here at this weekly high. You have higher lows repeatedly. And basically what I'm looking for here is I'm looking for it to break out of this, retest, and then, potentially at least go to here, maybe even higher. But with these, the key is you don't buy it within the triangle. You want to wait for the confirmation of a breakout. Like this thing could totally just do this, right? And it's another crappy altcoin. But when it does a really pretty high time frame pattern like this, especially after touching this like demand zone, I'm pretty interested. And I also was looking at Spaghetti, and this is an awesome tool. You can do it on many different time frames. I really like doing the 3-day for like identifying trades. I've just done a lot of back testing, and I found that for like positional swing trading, the 3-day relative strength is usually a great indication. And like RUNE is one of the strongest ones, stronger than Bitcoin during the sell-off. There's a lot of garbage in this as well. Like I wouldn't trade Zero Bro anymore. I wouldn't trade Act or Peanut anymore. But I think RUNE is interesting. Another one is SEI. Let's look at SEI actually. So I kind of want to watch this develop a little bit more, but I think for a low time frame trade, this could be interesting. It's to me somewhat doing a lot of things right, like moving out to the weekly level. It was playing around in these weekly levels here, and it broke through and didn't look back, or I guess it retested here. But what I'm looking for with something like this is these are 2 weekly levels here. It came into these hard last night with a lot of elevated volume heading upwards. And to me, this is looking like a low time frame shoulder, head, shoulder. So that pattern, reverse head and shoulders, is pretty bullish. Again, though, I want to wait for it to break out. This really, to me, isn't enough of a breakout. I see this as like, this is the low time frame shoulder line. I want to see it like convincingly break out. I want to see volume go up. I want to see it retest, because this is like another low time frame range here. So I want to see it test this, and then I want to see it keep going, potentially up to here, potentially higher. But that's a low time frame idea. And again, that's simply just looking at this 3-day strength here, seeing which ones are the outperformers, and then seeing if there's any actionable trades. There's not a ton else that I think looks candidly really good right now, or even takeable. This is PEPE. I think PEPE, as long as ETH recovers and we see some type of local bottom, again, this is a really good weekly level in my opinion. If you look at PEPE right here, it's a very pretty weekly level. It penetrated the weekly level and now has kind of reclaimed it. But what I really want to see it do as well is reclaim this other level right here. This is another weekly level here. So in my opinion, if it can reclaim this weekly level and this weekly level, that is a significant sign of strength. And then again, after it shows that relative strength that it can reclaim the levels, I like to see some confirmation of a bottom forming. And again, to me, this does look like a reverse head and shoulders on low time frames. Shoulder, shoulder, head. So with these types of patterns, you don't buy it until it breaks out. But what you want to see happen is like confident, powerful breakout, volume accelerating, increasing. I like to do a reclaim retest, and then hopefully it moves on from there. Maybe you can go up to there. Maybe it pushes higher. But that's kind of the idea with PEPE.
I would like to share a take on PEPE too.
Yeah. You have I know you have a very bearish macro take on PEPE.
But also like if I can take the screen for just a second.
Yeah, take the screen. Let me
share this window. I know I have a macro bearish chart here put on. Tell me if you see my window.
I see your screen. You're good.
Okay, perfect. So the general, because I played this pattern very often on the low time frame, You have the grind up, 3-tap highs.
Yep.
You have built up lows, which is pretty much just a lot of liquidity hiding below them. And you have a big FEG below you on the weekly level. So I switched to the weekly. And this
And
could be a
explain to everyone what
15-minute
an
chart.
FEG is. It's just a demand zone.
Or it's a demand zone.
Yeah, it's a demand zone.
But you got that big candle up here, right?
Yep.
Which has pretty much no back test on the weekly chart here. And you break down from your upward grindy channel here. So you have an actually breakdown from that line here. And I really take them seriously. And what would be the bullish view on PEPE and what I want to see before entering PEPE? Of course, ETH leading the market would be perfect because PEPE then would be my strongest ETH beta play I have in mind with a very high conviction. And also a failed breakdown from this. So if we fail to break down further here, and let's say we recover here, is pretty bullish because everyone capitulated basically, and you move in the other direction. But what I want to see before this happening is regaining this channel, and ultimately, in the optimal case, reclaiming the weekly 50 and the daily 200 here with this channel. And this confluence here would be enough to start a bigger position on PEPE. I'm talking from a reclaim, not a bearish retest, because until then, I would short this. A retest to the channel and to the daily 200 or weekly 50 here, definitely a great short to play it further down if you're bearish into that region. Big short. And I'm looking at this too. But if we reclaim that and we have a failed breakdown, this quickly can turn in a very bullish scenario. And you were talking on a weekly horizontal level, which is fine. But I kinda, in this scenario, because it looks so cliffhanging at the moment, would wait probably for the late trigger. For either shorting into it or longing into it with a bigger size. But if you're day trading, I think, these market movements here, which we could have on coins, they look small, but this is actually a potential 50% rally just to make a bearish retest. So why not day trade it, or why not long into it if you see structure on the very low time frame? And many coins look like this. They make high time frame small bounces, not relevant, you would say, but these are 50 to 100% rallies easily because the coins all are down 80 to 90%. It's crazy. PEPE is one of the stronger ones and is down 74%.
Yeah. I mean, look, we could both be right. I'm not targeting all-time highs with this low time frame reclaim trading at weekly levels, and your breadth indicator is super sold off as well.
Oh yeah, it is.
Like
I thought
it
it would
almost can't
bottom.
get any more sold off at this point.
Oh, it can. Yeah, I already thought we would have put in a low here. I remember me playing into that theory, but it wasn't a low. So I'm basically just waiting here. But I think PEPE is a great play. As we said, once ETH picks up, I think PEPE could be something. And if it reclaims that level, I'm turbo bullish. There's nothing what holds me.
Oh yeah.
That's my PEPE take.
No, I like it. I like it. I like when we can both have different opinions about something, but both be right hypothetically. That's why
Oh
trading's
yeah,
beautiful. Everyone has a different opinion in
it's
the
the life of
markets,
a
and
trader.
yeah, it
Yeah,
is. It is. It is. That's why markets exist. Well, should we
you
wrap
can
it
take on
here?
the screen again.
Is there anything else you want to talk about, Max?
Nothing from me. I'm just watching for the 60-day now to like how it resolves ultimately. If it triggers for me to start spot allocations, and if yes, would be great. Would be lovely to be allocated again. But for now, still defensive, which saved me a fuck ton of money.
True. So you're 100% in cash.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, so am I. I'm 100% in cash too. All right, man. Let's see how this plays out. This was fun
Let's
though.
see.
The first weekly market update with Max Computer Brain. You heard it here first. Good luck.
It's great.
Have fun. This is not financial advice. Educational purposes only, of course. We can't be held responsible for any bad PEPE longs you make. So.
Oh God, please no.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.
Till next week.
See you, Max.